Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir tout le monde. Before we begin, I'll take a few minutes to address some relevant matters. First, this council chambers is a place of decorum and respect. Therefore, I expect everyone here will abide by those values. There will be an opportunity for questions on the agenda of the day at section 14, so I appreciate silence until then so that council and staff can conduct the business of the corporation in proper fashion. Cette chambre du conseil est un lieu de décorum et de respect, alors je m'attends que chacun respecte ses valeurs. Il y aura une occasion de poser des questions sur l'ordre du jour à la section 14. Donc, j'apprécie ici le silence afin que le conseil et notre personnel puissent mener les affaires de la corporation de manière appropriée. With a 2024 budget of approximately $50 million, rest assured that council meetings are, in fact, business meetings between a duly elected council and our very professional administration, so that through our discussions we can give direction on how our corporation moves forward in an open and transparent fashion so that the public can observe these directives. Council is discussing the challenge of the question period this evening, and for those of you who went on our YouTube page and watched our last meeting, either live or the recording, you have heard some of the concerns of Council. That the question period has devolved into a form where many questions have become much more operational or administrative in nature, and that this method doesn't foster the kind of community engagement Council is looking for. Unfortunately, for some individuals, they're using question period as an attempt to micromanage our staff, fashion their questions in such a way they are insinuating that staff don't know what they're doing, or in some cases, calling into question the very integrity of those who honorably support our community every single day. These tactics do not foster a healthy workplace environment for anyone, and I thank our staff for remaining professional in the face of these situations, because often they are not in a position to engage or defend themselves. In relation to the anonymous flyer that was circulated in our community, I offer a few questions for everyone to reflect on internally. Why send out materials anonymously, depriving residents the ability to discuss the matter with the person or the group in question? This is not open or transparent. Why not encourage people to go see the actual discussion that occurred at our previous meeting and let residents judge for themselves the intent of council? With the current toxic online environment seeping itself into the real world, causing so many great staff and elected officials to leave local governments, how can residents expect us to simply ignore these types of discussions? Should those responsible for this flyer be here tonight, I encourage you to have the moral fortitude to please stand up and let everyone know who you are, because I can tell you many in our community are not happy with such an approach, and they should have the right to speak with whoever is responsible, just like they have every right to speak with their elected officials. I want to thank Councillor Tarnowski for raising the issue, knowing how difficult this topic could be, and to Council for agreeing to have this discussion, knowing it would be very polarizing. Finally, I am grateful to everyone here this evening and watching online for giving us your precious time. We don't always have to agree, but we do have to have respect for one another. Thank you. With that, I'll begin with roll call. All members of council are present and accounted for. I'll please ask everyone to stand for the territorial land acknowledgement statement and moment of reflection, followed by the national anthem.
Alors, nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé des Anishinaabe et les terres traditionnelles des peuples Haudenosaunee, Huron, Wendat et Kanien'kehá:ka. Nous reconnaissons notre obligation commune de respecter, d'honorer et de préserver ces terres et les ressources naturelles qu'elles contiennent.
Whereas Canada is founded upon principles that recognize the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. We don't have any more chairs. Councillor Deakin mentioned that we do have some elderly people in the audience standing in the back. If anybody feels they're able to free their seats to have them sit down, I think that'd be appreciated. Thank you very much. We have a few seats empty at the front. Item 4, adjonction, effacement ou modification. Additions, deletions, or amendments. We have a few changes. Item 11C to be added in regards to committee membership. And items 18A and B will be addressed after item 11C. So I need a motion to approve the agenda as amended. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tarnowski, seconded by Councillor Deakin. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 6, déclaration d'intérêt pécuniaire. Hearing, seeing none. Item 7, adoption of the minutes. Regular council minutes of February 12th, 2024. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Conseiller Larin, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Questions, comments on the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8 et 9. Présentation de délégation, il n'y en a pas. Item 10, consent items. Motion that all items listed under consent items be received as presented. Item A, request for the community grants from the Parks and Recreation Department 2024 budget. Item B, minutes of the Marionville Citizens Committee of December 14, 2023. Item C, minutes of the Township of Russell Public Library Board, January 18, 2024. Item D, minutes of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell Regular Council Meeting of October 25th, 2023, Special Council Meeting of November 8, 2023, Regular Council Meeting of November 22nd, 2023, and item E, the pay list for January 24. Questions? Conseiller Tarnowski.
More of a comment, Mr. Mayor. Alors, je voudrais féliciter, congratulate the library board and the team in the library. I saw that in the minutes now that the library is going to be open from 10 to 2 as a pilot project on Sundays. So it's the first time our libraries are, or we are going to be having a library service on Sundays. And so I'm excited to see that. So congratulations, Councillor Deakin, who sits on the board, the rest of the board, and the staff at the library. I'm really happy to see that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Consent items? Hearing, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried.
Mr. Mayor, did I miss the mover seconder for that one?
C'était à mover, c'était à conseiller Lorrain puis conseiller Lalonde.
Thank you.
Item 11, rapport des départements et comités du conseil. Item 1, achat de réservoir d'eau, rapport ISPW 2024-03. Que le conseil reçoive le rapport ISPW 2024-03 daté du 26 février 2024 et accepte la soumission d'AIB Schmidt Group pour l'achat à la source unique en vertu du règlement 2021-97, article 22A 2.5 d'un réservoir d'eau pour notre camion tandem pour le prix de 117 873,23 $, plus 2074,57 $, qui est égal à 119 947,80 $. Ce montant inclut 1,76% de TVH non remboursable. Questions, questions, members of council? Councillor Deakin?
Just grateful that the administration included, again, the purchasing policy that it was referring to in terms of the sole sourcing. So thank you for that.
Perfect. And Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Bourgon, anything to add to the report?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, je pourrais ajouter que, dans le fond, d'autres fournisseurs, s'il y aurait à fournir l'équipement similaire, devraient acheter les contrôles puis de rendre leur équipement compatible. Donc, ça serait tout de l'équipement supplémentaire, là. Donc, une autre raison du pourquoi qu'on fait cette demande au conseil ce soir.
So, il serait en train d'acheter l'équipement de ce fournisseur-là. OK. Perfect. Councillor Lorrain?
Can we just repeat that in English so people may understand that, just in case?
Yeah, Monsieur Bourgon?
Thank you.
So if we are to select another supplier, they would need to buy the controls to adapt their equipment to our vehicle. So they would be purchasing pieces of equipment of that supplier to provide us with their equipment. So that's another reason that we could have mentioned in our report. And then that's another reason why we're asking this sole sourcing purchasing tonight in front of council.
Okay, perfect. Other questions or comments on this one? No, thank you very much. Next item, item B, proposed amendments to procedural bylaw report CAASCL 2024. We had the information as part of our package. Members of council, Councillor Ternosky, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, good evening, fellow council members, staff, residents of Russell Township. First, I want to express my profound gratitude for the opportunity to serve this amazing community and for the significant engagement we've witnessed from our residents on this pressing issue. Our dedication to transparency, accountability, and fostering a respectful environment for dialogue stands firm. With this commitment in mind, I wanted to share some thoughts on the ongoing discussion about our question period as part of this procedural bylaw, a subject that has sparked much debate. As I mentioned during our last meeting, and this is on video as well, over the last 12 to 18 months, we've observed a concerning shift in the tone and direction of the questions posed during these periods. What was intended as a platform for constructive community engagement has sometimes been overshadowed by remarks challenging the productive and respectful atmosphere we strive to uphold. At our last meeting, I highlighted these concerns and suggested that without a feasible solution, we might need to reevaluate the question period placed within the procedural bylaw. This consideration stems from a deep concern for the well-being of our staff and the integrity, of our council meetings, rather than a desire to limit dialogue. In the wake of our discussions, and after engaging in numerous conversations over the past couple of weeks, I've been generally reassured of the shared values of openness and respect within the majority of our residents. Interestingly enough, the inclusion of an update from our staff on the development of a communication and engagement policy for our township in this week's meeting package has, in my opinion, given rise to an opportune moment to possibly address these issues at hand. This policy aims to enhance how we engage with residents, ensuring every voice is heard and valued in a respectful and constructive manner. Having said that, I propose that we defer the discussion on amending the procedural bylaw regarding the question period. Let's allow the forthcoming engagement policy to provide a framework for our shared transparency and accountability objectives while preserving the respectful and constructive dialogue we all value. In the meantime, if we do defer, or if we decide not to move in changing this policy, in the meantime, I strongly would advocate for measures to protect the well-being of our staff during question period. We must ensure a respectful environment where staff are not put on the spot to made feel uncomfortable. Should complex questions arise that require detailed response, our staff need to feel comfortable knowing that they have the flexibility to provide proper answers in an appropriate time frame, not necessarily on the spot. This approach will provide residents with more thorough answers while ensuring a more constructive and respectful atmosphere, upholding our commitment to transparency and accountability. This deferral, if accepted, will enable us to reflect on community feedback that we've all received and approach our decisions with the collective well-being of Russell Township in mind. Moving forward with patience and openness, we are prepared to adapt our processes in the best interest of our community. So in closing, I'd like to extend my sincerest thanks to everyone who has passionately contributed to this dialogue. Your perspectives are invaluable as we strive to enhance our community engagement practices. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Conseiller Lalonde?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, would like to make a few comments if I could get a minute or so. And I wanted to go back to comments that I made at the last council meeting where I was in support of the idea of potentially suspending the public question period. So I just want to revisit some of the comments I made, and I wanted to build on a few of them as well. And much like Councillor Tarnowski mentioned, I too was a bit concerned with the fact that questions were too often related to operational and administrative issues. And the challenge is that with no advance time for staff to prepare, the idea of providing detailed answers or to those specific questions meant that, and we get to witness this in front of them, that they have to scramble to sort of either pull up documents on the screen in an attempt to present indeed reasonable responses, as Mr. Tarnowski said, on the spot. The approach creates a risk of producing incomplete and underdeveloped answers, which for me is a practice that has to change. Staff shouldn't be put under a time crunch or put itself under a time crunch to come up with live answers to these types of questions during the meeting session. Administrative and operational type questions from residents are legitimate for sure, but might be better managed through email submissions to the Chief Administrative Officer. Indeed, some residents sending in questions when the agenda is first made public are getting responses ahead of the actual council meeting. I expressed some concern as well over statements and remarks made by residents before or after asking their questions. Question period is not an opportunity for residents to make comments, give opinions, or level criticism at council or staff. I also expressed my opinion on the need for a level of questioning that more so engages the members of council and not just staff, a need to look at the larger issues affecting our community. Now, for example, a much anticipated report on the important issue of affordable housing affecting the vulnerable seniors, low-income families, and persons with physical and developmental disabilities living in our township was presented just a few months ago at council. There are 6 major recommendations in that report that would affect our budget, revenue streams, human resource requirements, and department structure. Yet not a single question was raised on these game-changing proposals during the question period. The fact that the average in-person attendance at regular council meetings, except for delegations and except for tonight's session, amounts to about 3 to 4 residents, suggests that the public question period has lost some of its meaning. It suggests that we have a public engagement challenge in front of us as well. Would town hall type meetings or similar type forums attract and engage more residents? Would it generate a higher level of feedback for the sake of our communities? So like Councillor Tarnowski, I had the opportunity to meet with a number of residents over the past week. And what came of that was mostly that they would urge me to exercise fairness and caution, but some were also encouraging some forward thinking here. So I believe we have to work on all these points. I'd still like to see a more effective and efficient public question period experience for residents, but also for council. And I'd like to see a revamped and more meaningful public engagement strategy as well. So I could support the idea of retaining some form of the public question period if I had the assurance that it would address the issues I've presented tonight. And I'm also willing to listen to other options or ideas that the rest of our councillors or our mayor may have that would address my suggestions, both on public question period as well as community engagement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other members? Councillor Larre?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think I've said this at the last meeting that this isn't the first time this has come to council. When I first got on council, it was an open question period for those that were on staff. That is very, very difficult to deal with from council and staff when we have no idea what kind of topic is going to be coming up during the discussion. So at that point, there was discussion of removing it completely or altering it. And the alteration ended up being questions on meeting of the day only. So that's where we are today. And, you know, I've always been in support, and you can go back and look at it, I've always been in support of a public question period and allowing the public to speak and ask their questions. And I have no problem with that if they are asking questions of council. And I think that's one of the changes that needs to happen. And, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing this public engagement policy or report that's going to come up, and see what we're going to do, depending on how the decision goes tonight, whether Councillor Ternoski's motion to defer goes through or not. The last thing I'm going to say is I believe, Mr. Mayor, that with that in mind, that we would want to remove that item from the consent items to deal with it, to deal with both matters separately. So I'll make that request now. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Deacon?
Thank you. I'm still getting my voice back after being sick for the entire month. Bear with me. So I hope this is a turning point, and I appreciate my fellow councillors making comments before me. I understand why this has been brought to the table. And to be clear, I'm not voting in support of removing the question period tonight. I want to acknowledge that trust in public institutions is at an all-time low. And I'm so glad to hear that public engagement work is underway with the administration. We need to understand what sort of public engagement we should be doing, when, how, and why. I believe we owe that to residents and to ourselves in terms of where we're going with a lot of the big decisions that are coming our way. And I think a policy will get us there. And this work is reflected in our strat plan objective commitments: communication, empathy, and trust with residents. All of those objectives will be supported through this work that the administration has committed to. So I'm imagining this as a map of public engagement that we can all find our bearings and our orientation around as residents, council, and administration, and get behind together. As I mentioned last meeting, I want to know where we're going. That tends to be my way. I want to know where we're going, not what we're leaving behind. And so I just have two comments that I want to make. The first is a question: who's on the road with us? If we have this map and we're heading in a direction of better public engagement. I come from, I work in a lot of worlds, and one of them is the tech sector, user experience design. And when I do that work, my job is to get people in the same room hashing out problems together who don't usually get to see each other, people with very diverse perspectives. And that includes people experiencing the problems as well as people with expertise in solving those problems. And there are still too many rooms with people trying to solve problems for people without those people actually in the room. That needs to change everywhere. And so we're looking at creating this map. It's my firm belief that we need to involve residents in its creation, whether it's consultation, developing a charter, committee surveys. I've done my homework. I've seen lots of different ideas, lots of different models for how that's done. That's for the administration to determine. I just need to see it in these next few months. And with residents involved, I guarantee, this is my whole professional experience that I hang my hat on, we'll see higher participation rates in that engagement and a shared sense of true ownership and pride over how civic participation and public engagement is done here. Better outcomes at the end of the day as we try to make some of these big decisions. And the second point, again, it's a question: how can I help? And I think that's something that we should all be asking ourselves at this point. I include in that members of council, administration, and residents. What choices am I making today that help us to come together rather than grow apart? And I know that some of those choices aren't easy. This is a core reason why I'm here at this table, this belief. And like I said, I'm so glad to hear that the work is beginning, because if we do this well as a community, we are truly going to be unstoppable. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to defer from, well, we're going to be voting on it separately, so I'll come back at the, we'll move on to the next item. Item 11C, 11C is in regards to committees. We thought since we would have a full house tonight, this is a perfect opportunity to, we'll put up on the screen. So this is a list of the committees that we have in our township and all the positions that are available currently in green. We often put out a call for membership to our committees. Unfortunately, the applications are few and far between, but this is a perfect example of how you can participate in the process of township. So it's just to put it out there for members of council. We have many of the members of council here sit on those committees. Some are not in relation. Council members don't sit on it at all. But there is information. I think if we scroll down, you can just send a how to apply. So application form can be found on our website at russell.ca/committees. Alors ça c'est la liste de comités qui est disponible pour les membres du public appliquer pour. Alors on pensait avec le nombre de personnes dans la salle ce soir, ça serait une belle opportunité de vous laisser savoir qu'il y a tout le temps des possibilités de venir participer dans nos comités. Councillor Deacon?
Are we allowed to make a pitch on why people should join our committees?
Of course, go ahead.
I'm kidding, but do apply. It would be great to have some more faces, and a lot of really great work is done there. A lot of good discussion is had. I did want to ask, through you, Mr. Mayor, I saw in the newsletter today that went out that there is an eco-dev working group, and I'm just wondering if we could have more information on that. I don't see it on the list there.
Yep. Monsieur Godin, Madame Tremblay.
Bonsoir. Oui, donc on refait notre plan stratégique de développement économique cette année, donc ça fait déjà présentement 5 ans. Puis, as part of the EcoDev strategy plan, we're going to have a working session, but we want to have a group that would specifically work for that. So it's not an official group, but it's something that we wanted to put in the newsletter, that if people were interested, to send us email to be part of that group. But obviously we'll have open houses and public meeting as well when the consultant will be selected. So we didn't, the RFP didn't go out yet, but this is all process in the works, so we invite people to be part of the process.
Okay, perfect. Any other questions? Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, I mean, if we're on the subject of committees, I'd just like to say that, you know, in the course of the last week or so and talking about public engagement and question period, I mean, I didn't want to forget to mention to some of the folks I was chatting with the valuable contribution of the committees that are being shown on the screen tonight. I mentioned earlier the Affordable and Attainable Housing Committee. We have some of the members in the audience. They worked very, very hard the last 8 months. I can tell you that what's come of that is quite powerful. If you get a chance to read that document, do so, and I'd be happy to answer questions on it. The arguments that I was hearing is, well, you know, joining those committees sometimes, I mean, nobody's listening when we're sending in recommendations or sending it up the committee. I couldn't disagree more, at least for the committees that I've been on. I also chair the Accessibility Advisory Committee. They've been a powerful group. I've been humbled by the work that they're doing in making sure that our residents with developmental and physical disabilities, that their rights are protected and promoted in the community. And some of the work that they've brought forward to council is always listened to very carefully. So these committees do make a difference. They are about public engagement. They do provide valuable feedback to council. And I would encourage anyone who sees those empty positions to give them serious consideration. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments on this one? No? Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Now we're going to item 18A. Myself, Pierre Leroux, application form, Regional Community Investment Fund. So there's a resolution here. Whereas Mayor Pierre Leroux, on behalf of the Township of Russell, submitted an application form for the Regional Community Investment Fund of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell, UCPR, for funding of $30,000 for a proposed eligible project for the remaining 9 months of 2024, and in 2025 and 2026, should this funding program still be in place, then to continue the program with $40,000 contribution in each of those years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Russell supports the application and the implementation of the partnership with the UCPR regarding the Regional Community Investment Fund to eliminate the need for a paid membership for the Russell Township Sports Dome walking running track to foster active lifestyles, promote inclusivity, and enhance community well-being. Questions, comments from members of council on this one? So essentially, we're partnering with the UCPR. Revenues that we received over the past few years in regards to membership fees, we'll be able to eliminate the need to have a paid membership, and everyone in our community will have free use of the walking track or running track at the Dome. Make sure just the track, not the field or the gym or the courts, but just the walking running track. So, Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, just a question, because I know it'll, people probably have that question through you for Madame Guital, is what happens to people who have already paid for a membership fee? Can we just remind the public what that would look like?
Yeah, Monsieur Godin, Madame Guital.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So we've had this discussion, and the people that have bought some passes will reimburse for the time that is left to purchase as of the date that the program will be starting.
Yeah. So this is being presented at the UCPR on Wednesday. So that's why I'm asking for the resolution this evening. So question, Councillor Tarnowski?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Juste pour savoir, au niveau de si c'est accepté, combien de temps ça va prendre opérationnellement pour nous autres d'adapter ça?
Madame Guital?
Peut-être que ma coordonnatrice de loisirs ne va pas m'aimer ce soir, là, mais je vais dire peut-être 2 à 3 semaines, là, parce qu'il y a quand même beaucoup d'usagers. Donc, il faut quand même, il y a du travail à faire, surtout pour les gens qu'on doit des remboursements. Puis ensuite de ça, ben, le temps pour avoir le remboursement, ça aussi, ben, ça va relever du département de finances. Là.
Oui. Moi, juste ajouter que even though if the county council approves this on Wednesday, the two administrations still have to get together and sign the contract. So it'll be, I'll be there. Councillor, follow-up?
So presumably, when it's agreed to and signed, I understand that there will be time to get refunds, but otherwise, for residents to be able to start enjoying that could be kind of on 24, 48-hour kind of thing, or like within the week? For access. That's all I mean. Once administrations have discussed the transfer of funds and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, merci.
Okay. Conseiller Lorrain?
This is for Mr. Godin. I would assume that we would post that on our billboards as well, so that the residents know that it would be in effect, or when it becomes in effect, so that people can start enjoying the walking running track.
Monsieur Godin?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, Councillor Lawrence, so as soon as this is adopted, the recreation team and the corporate services team will work together to make sure it's publicized and advertised accordingly.
Yeah. I think that our newest newsletter just went out today. So unfortunately, we weren't able to put it in there, but definitely we'll be able to put it in the next newsletter, and obviously through our email subscription. Since I'll take a perfect time. We have a lot of people here in this evening. We actually, if you go on our website, you're able to subscribe to our newsletter. So all the information the township is doing is often sent out through the newsletter. So I encourage everyone here to subscribe, and you can choose what you want to follow in regards to what kind of announcement. We have a calendar activities for all the organizations and can publish what's going on in the community. So it's a great resource. Any other questions or comments? No? Seeing none, we'll go on to the next item. Oh, sorry. Oh, Councillor Lalonde?
Well, I thought I'd give a shout out to our mayor, because I know you've been working on this for a couple months, wanting to see this through and take it all the way to counties. So congratulations to you for getting that message through and getting the funding from them secured. This is going to be a great thing for everyone in the community. I'm thinking in particular the physically disabled as well. Get out on that track. Wheelchairs are allowed, so looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is item 18B, myself, expanding rural transportations. whereas the Township of Russell faces challenges related to limited access to transportation, and there exists a pressing need for a ride-sharing service to address transportation gaps within our community. Whereas rideshare services are increasingly relied upon by seniors, students, visitors, and tourists, and residents looking for safe, affordable, convenient, and reliable ways to travel. Whereas the standardization and consistency of regulations across municipalities, particularly in Ontario, can improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the regulatory framework. Whereas transferring the responsibility of rideshare regulations and licensing to the provincial level would contribute to a more streamlined and uniform governance structure, while eliminating associated red tape and unnecessary administrative costs. Therefore, be it resolved that the Township of Russell Council hereby expresses its support for the migration of rideshare regulations and licensing from the municipal level to the provincial level. Be it further resolved that the Township of Russell Council formally requests the Government of Ontario to initiate the transfer of responsibilities in the interest of creating a more coherent and standardized regulatory framework for ride-sharing services across the province. Be it further resolved that copies of the motion be distributed to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Pradmeet Sarkaria, Minister of Transportation, the Honourable Paul Calandra, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable David Piccini, Member of Provincial Parliament, and Monsieur Stéphane Sarrazin, Member of Parliament for Glengarry, Prescott Russell, the Association of Municipalities Ontario, AMO, the Eastern Ontario Warrens Caucus, the United Counties of Prescott Russell, and all 8 UCPR municipalities. Questions, comments on this one? This is essentially Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, I did have some questions on this that I wasn't able to reach out to Madame Bordeaux. Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you for being all ears. I was just going to ask for a deferral of this one because I was not able to get my questions into Madame Bordeaux quite yet.
Okay. Yeah, we can separate out this item 18B, and we can defer that if needed. Yep. Okay. So that's 18.
Mr. Mayor, did
Wait.
you want to mention that these 2 items will be voted with number 15?
Yeah, when we get to 15 for the resolutions, then we'll have to amendment to take out those 2 items, or to add the one for the UCPR and do that one separately. Item 12, reports from investigator and the ombudsman, il n'y a pas. Item 13, avis de motion, il n'y a pas. Item 14, item 14, question period on meeting of the day. So I'll ask anyone who wants to ask, and it's a question period, it's not a comment period. That's how our procedural bylaw is written. So I'll ask anyone who has a question on the agenda of the day to please come up. State your name and address for the record and pose your question, please.
Councillor Armstrong, sorry. Maybe Councillor Deacon's passing me on her throat. Charles Armstrong, if an item is on the agenda for whatever reason, is that not a council issue? Is that a council issue and not an operational issue?
Repeat that, please.
If an item is on the agenda,
Yep.
is that item a council issue and not an operational issue?
It could be both. And it could also be, depending on the question, if the question is an operational matter or is it in regards to a policy matter or a budgetary matter. Because operations fall under the administration and policy and budget fall under council.
Can you give us a definition
So
we can understand the two?
See, and that's part of the reason it's so tricky with the question period. Because the question period is not a discussion, it's not a debate. You've asked your question, I've answered. I'm happy to have those discussions and dive deeper into a conversation, but our procedural bylaw does not permit that. So you've asked the question, can I give you an example? Can I, there's a lot of people in the room that would like to ask a question, and question period is limited, as per our procedural bylaw, to 15 minutes. So I would like to maximize the 15 minutes.
How were the rules of procedure followed in terms of notices of motion and suspending rules when the item was originally placed on the agenda as 18 whatever in the last council meeting?
So the way that was proceeded at the last meeting, there was nothing wrong with it. So it followed the rules of procedure. And I know you've sent an email and you disagree with that. I've taken courses on parliamentary procedure, and I agree with the way it was done. And I can confirm, Monsieur Godin, did we check with our lawyer in regards to how the motion, how the discussion moved forward?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we did consult just to make sure, but and it was confirmed that we did follow the procedural bylaw.
Thank you.
Okay.
First, Mr. Armstrong, I would like to give an opportunity to everybody in the room to speak. So if there's other people that have questions.
Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Yep.
That was just said? That the request from Councillor Taranowski at the last meeting
Correct.
was not a notice of motion.
That's correct. It was
A
not.
notice of motion is a different type of request. And I just wanted to clarify that because I think Mr. Armstrong had suggested that in his language that he used just now as a notice of motion, and it was not a notice of motion.
That is correct. It was
Thank you.
it was raised under item 18, which is council member items.
Good evening. My name is Rhonda Bradley. And during last council meeting, there was a request of administration for a report on engagement in council meeting and question period, and I'm wondering if that report has come forward.
Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So during last meeting, there was a request for some statistics on questions asked from residents to staff. As well as an update on our works on the public engagement policy. So those two items were addressed, and they are in the package in item 11B.
Okay, thank you.
I don't believe
Next question.
I don't believe it was a report. I believe it was, here is access to all of the agendas, and you can see for yourself. So I'm wondering if a report came forward.
So as mentioned at the last meeting by Monsieur Godin, that he would be able to provide some information, but obviously in a 2-week period to do an in-depth report, it would be challenging. So he did provide the information for members of the public and members of council to review. Monsieur Godin, quelque chose à ajouter là-dessus?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. No, so that's correct. So as I mentioned last meeting, it would be probably anecdotal because we don't have a lot of turnaround time to bring up all that information. But we did confirm that essentially we in the past 10 years, we don't receive many questions directly from residents to staff member when the agenda package is released. It usually goes through members of council, so we do receive questions from members of council who we assume sometimes receive them directly from the residents, which I think is appropriate. And so that's kind of the information we were able to provide for council at this point in time.
Councillor Deacon, and then Conseiller Lalonde.
I was one of the members of council who was looking for this information as part of the discussion at that last meeting, and I just want to underscore the response time was a big part for me, and seeing that again in the item here, the second document of that item, that all of the questions were responded to between a few hours or within 48 hours by the channel of which they were contacted. I was very happy to see that.
Thank you. Conseiller Lalonde?
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing, but I also wanted to mention, indeed, to try and get that data in the form of a report in the space of less than 2 weeks is a pretty formidable task. But I did appreciate at least getting it and having a chance to take some time aside and just peruse through it myself. It was sufficient for my purposes, although it wasn't per se a report. You could certainly peruse through the whole thing, and for as many hours as you wanted to spend on it, you could get a good idea of the data that was in there. So I did appreciate that. albeit in a short time frame.
Thank you. Other questions for members of council? So please come up, state your name and address for the record, and the question on the agenda of the day.
I think it's on. Yeah. Hi, Brittany Boulevard, Brittany Hughes. Sorry.
Sorry, if you could just talk a little bit closer to the mic. We have people in the back.
Sorry. Just with regards to the policy that's currently in the works, as I understand, it's not by any way finalized or put forward. What kind of consideration is council giving to the prospect of a separate and alternative town hall-like forum that's similar to the open question period that Councillor Lorraine mentioned used to be in place at council meetings, but as opposed to being in the council meetings where there's a lot of other things on the agenda, having a separate forum for simply open discussion on council-related items with the public that wouldn't take up productive meeting time. What kind of consideration is being given to that?
Thank you. So I can base my answer on the discussion that happened at the last meeting. Council was very open to looking at a lot of different options on how to increase that community engagement. You know, we do that currently, for example, when we have our public budget session in September, where residents are invited to come and put forward their requests. What are they looking for in at budget time for their community, right? So I think there's a lot of willingness. How we get there, that's obviously part of the discussions, and what the team and the administration is going to work on. That's from my perspective. Again, I think that communication, you know, two-way flow, free-flowing communication is always better than the current practice that we have. But I would say that's my thoughts on the matter. Councillor Lalonde?
Just a short comment that, you know, as we were discussing all of this stuff over the last few weeks about public question period, I went out and, as I'm sure a lot of others did, to look at what was going on in other cities, municipalities of our size, slightly larger, maybe slightly smaller, and recognizing that a lot of them had done away with public question period, from Cornwall to Brockville to St. Catharines to name a few. But I did stumble upon the City of London, and I don't know if they did away with theirs or whether they even ever had one, but what they do have is a community engagement committee, and was looking at its mandate and mission and purpose. It was quite interesting. I wasn't going to bring it up here in terms of using it as a model, but and I expect that our administration is looking at that kind of stuff as well, you know, best practices, things happening in other communities. But it is something quite interesting. It appears to be quite robust. I'll be looking for a more so Maiden Russell Township model to come forward, because we are a very unique township. We're exploding in terms of population growth, and so I think it'll need to be something unique to our area.
Okay. Thank you very much. And that's pretty standard, right? With growth comes growing pains. Councillor Deakin and Conseiller Lorrain.
I just wanted to touch on this again because I'm sure that as the administration is working on developing this policy and looking at, you know, my majority of my comments were around how are residents going to be involved in this, and making sure that as a councillor I'm going to be doing my work to make sure resident voice goes into it in some way, shape or form. But I was wondering if we could ask the administration what the next couple of weeks, couple of months looks like, and what opportunities they see for how the scope of the policy will be developed. What are the steps?
Monsieur Godin, Monsieur Dagenet.
Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. J'aimerais apporter une clarification concernant la politique sur l'engagement public. Présentement, nous n'en avons pas une en place à la municipalité de Russell. Cependant, au cours des derniers mois, nous avons participé à diverses sessions de formation et de présentations sur ce sujet. Nous prévoyons d'organiser des réunions dans les semaines à venir pour définir les principes, les processus et les meilleures pratiques pour les interactions entre la municipalité et les divers intervenants. Avant de finaliser la politique, Nous aimerions présenter notre vision au Conseil afin de solliciter votre avis sur cette question. De plus, nous envisageons d'aborder cette discussion dans la section « Discussion stratégique » de l'ordre du jour pour recueillir votre point de vue sur ce sujet.
Parfait. Good.
So that will come back to a strategic discussion for council to give input. So I'm just going to put out there that please contact your council members if you have a certain idea, a model, you know, a question about that we can be representing on your behalf.
Thank you. Councillor Lorrain?
Yeah, just, I mean, Councillor Deacon just said it, contact your members of council. I mean, everyone through the last couple of weeks that have sent emails, obviously they know our email address now. Most should know our phone numbers or you know, we're available. And, you know, I can see that there's this engagement. Well, you know what? I'm here. The rest of council are there as well. Reach out to us. There's been so many topics over the many years that I've sat on council that, you know, ought to have had a lot of public input, and I did not receive any, or very little on the topics. Well, if this was the kick in the butt that we needed to re-engage, then I'm glad it happened, because now I'm pleased with the fact that people are engaged, but continue to be engaged, not just on this topic of the question period, but on all topics. I don't think I have shied away from anybody that has approached me, whether it's at 7:30 at the arena in the morning, whether it's at 9 o'clock at night walking Foodland, or anywhere else that I've been. I'm very approachable, and I'm sure all other members of council are approachable. Reach out to us. We're here to listen. We're here to advocate on your behalf. That's what we were elected to do. So, you know, that's all I can ask at this point, is continue the engagement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the only thing I'll add to that is, as a council, we have a responsibility that we have to look at the overall big picture of the township. As many people as we have here in this room, this is fantastic. But for as many people here, there's probably that many different opinions. So it's, you know, when you have discussions with members of council, simply because we don't necessarily agree on something, that is not a bad thing. We're allowed as a democracy to still be civil and have disagreements, right? But that's fantastic. But for me, it's keeping in mind that we represent over 20,000 people in this community now. So we have to look at the big picture and see how we can make things work for, I'll say, the majority. Thank you.
Sorry, I just had a follow-up given the information you just provided. Specifically in relation to resident involvement, I was just wondering if council is considering the involvement of the Community Diversity and Equity Committee with regards to that policy making, and or if they're also looking at the possibility of maybe like a resident-led focus group about the conversation?
Yeah, so at this point, we can't speak to it because the administration hasn't finalized those details yet, but I see heads nodding, so I'm sure they're taking all the notes, and we'll be bringing back to something for council's consideration on how to move forward.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Question? Juste un petit peu plus proche.
Je veux savoir si c'est possible d'avoir une traduction dans les séances, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de résidents, surtout qu'on est fort pour le parler français,
oui.
Parce que la plupart, beaucoup de monde, surtout nos aînés,
oui.
Ils comprennent pas, puis ils peuvent pas vraiment s'impliquer parce qu'ils comprennent pas, on est un...
Oui.
C'est possible.
So, oui, non, définitivement, je comprends. On a déjà eu les discussions à la table du conseil. Instant translation, c'est très, très cher. Le dernier census a sorti qu'il y a juste 4% de la population qui ne parle pas l'anglais. Alors, évidemment, c'est difficile, mais c'est quelque chose qu'on peut prendre note, puis aux prochaines discussions budgétaires. Ça étant dit, toute la documentation est sortie en français, en anglais. Puis évidemment, on parle tout français, on est prêt à engager avec les citoyens, puis avoir des conversations comme nécessaire. Monsieur Godin, y avait-tu quelque chose du côté administratif?
Merci, M. Maire. Tu l'as mentionné. Je vais juste mentionner comme quoi que tous les ordres du jour ainsi que les procès-verbaux sont sortis en français et en anglais aussi sur notre site web.
OK.
Puis est-ce que ça se fait, excusez, est-ce que ça se fait de faire des réunions en français des fois aussi, plus qu'on comme
Ben,
parce qu'on
quand que moi, je...
promote, le français en brun avec le monument.
Oui,
tout,
so,
dit.
c'était exactement... Ça, c'est le type de conversation qu'on ne peut pas avoir à une période de questions.
Parfait.
Exactement. Bel exemple, mais je suis prêt à avoir la conversation n'importe quand.
Merci.
Merci beaucoup. C'est intéressant, sorry. We've actually passed our 15 minutes. But, but that's... See? It's interesting. I am more than happy to extend the question period for questions. That being said, based on a lot of emails that we received, it was simply, do not change anything. And this is one of the things that council wanted to address, is to have discussions on how we can allow for more engagement. So, Councillor Tarnowski?
Can I propose that we suspend the rules of procedure to allow for some more time, given that we have such good engagement? I would hate to waste that.
Perfect.
Merci.
And that is by, sorry, hold on. We have procedures to follow. It's proposed by Councillor Tarnowski. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Deakin? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. We will extend the question period.
Many thanks. Christine Gravel, Risenville from 144 Tweed Crescent in Russell. Let's see here.
Question.
Yes. So in relation to the public's ability to ask questions in an open public forum, I go to what Councillor Lorraine was mentioning about speaking to you one-on-one, that type of thing, which I'm all for. However, I think I have questions about that. How do my issues get passed on to and shared with the other councillors? What happens if the individual doesn't support my issue or concern? Where does it go?
Yep.
And is this not a form of governance by lobbying? So
I
just
can...
concerned, what does it go into a
Yeah.
black hole? What happens? Can you explain to me what happens when we speak with you one-on-one, when we send emails? How does that come to council?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously, the first step is speaking with your elected officials. And here in Russell Township, it's not a ward system, so the 5 members represent everyone in Russell Township. So I suggest start with one member of council, see how the discussion goes. If they're not willing to address the matter, you can, go along and see if somebody is. That being said, you also have the ability to ask for a public delegation, which is an option that we see quite often with different residents or group that raise concerns about whatever issue is important to them. So there's that ability as well. Again, that being said, I have raised issues at the table for residents who I'm honest with them. I tell them, look, I don't support the issue or whatever it is, but I'm more than happy to bring it to the table and have that conversation. So, and I think I've seen many councillors do that. So that's the approach, I think. And again, I come back to a question and an answer without the ability to have a conversation and understand the context and the meaning behind the question can be very challenging in the setting we have. So I appreciate your time for asking those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Douglas Azar. Russell. When I come to these forums, I learn things. I learn things that, I'm not sure of, and I get information from you people. I agree with you, the staff shouldn't be put, they shouldn't be put upon and things like that. But these things really help, they give you information also. And I think this is an important democratic process and things like that.
So your question, sir?
My question is, you've got to, I guess it's just stating that occasionally groupthink goes wrong, right? I've seen it in Ottawa, I've seen it with the LRT, I've seen it with Cumming Civic Center. So sometimes it's good for your group to hear it from a larger group that's come to you at night. So I personally, so my question is, I hope you keep this kind of town hall meetings going. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see. I get one vote, and honestly, 99% of the time, I don't even vote. So, Councillor Deacon.
So I'm one of the newer members on council, and I wanted to say to Mr. Azar's point that some of the best discussions that we've had here at council during my time have been from delegations in particular coming, where groups of concerned citizens brought their case, brought their issue, brought any data, any research that they had behind it, and made very specific asks. And I think it's similar at budget time as well with those engagements. So we do have some examples of really great opportunities to not just hear questions from people, but hear direct comments, concerns, requests as well. So just to add to the last comment as well, we're not that scary, and you can always reach out to members of council to ask how to ask for things and to ask how to make impact here on an issue that you're having. So even if your question is just, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, we're friendly. You can always ask us how we can be most effective in your service as well, if that's your starting point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Janowski.
Juste pour dire que ça se fait en français ou en anglais. C'est bien facile.
Oh oui, les délégations, the delegations, is part of our procedural bylaw that actually allows us to have engagement and have a conversation with those residents. So I think a delegation for me, and it also allows staff to be able to prepare and know what's coming in regards to the delegation, and for them to be able to provide feedback as well. Alors, oui, des délégations, c'est super. Monsieur.
Bonjour, Marc Bisaillon. Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil, bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Ma question s'intitule, lorsqu'on dit Russell Township,
oui.
Puis on dit municipalité de Russell.
Oui.
Je crois qu'il y aurait peut-être caractère à faire correction dans le sens que ça serait canton de Russell. Comme ça l'a déjà été à un moment donné, on parle du canton de Champlain, on parle de 2 municipalités, ainsi que le canton de Hawkesbury. On parle de 3 municipalités. Ici, je crois qu'il y aurait peut-être matière à faire correction au sujet de canton de Russell.
La municipalité, plusieurs années passées, a commencé à utiliser municipalité parce qu'on est en pleine croissance. Canton, ça semble être un petit peu plus village, plus petit. Mais du côté de communication, plusieurs années passées, ça a commencé à être utilisé, je pense même avant mon temps, que ça commençait à municipalité. On peut regarder d'un côté de l'administration, voir s'il y a-t-il un changement officiel à faire. Ça serait potentiel. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, M. le maire. On pourrait définitivement vérifier. Je n'ai pas l'information ici ce soir, mais c'est quelque chose qu'on peut vérifier.
OK.
C'est parce que j'ai fait la vérification auprès de M. Parisien, et puis on m'a bien confirmé que c'était canton, que ça n'avait pas été voté. Donc, il faut que ça soit voté auprès d'un référendum populaire. À vérifier.
Oui, à vérifier. Je pense pas que c'est un référendum avec le public. Je pense que c'est plutôt une décision du conseil. Mais encore.
Vérifier.
OK. Merci beaucoup.
Et puis, l'autre chose, c'est au niveau de la période de questions.
C'est quoi la question?
La question, c'est, avez-vous vérifié auprès de la Charte des droits et libertés de l'expression?
Oui, puis je peux te dire clairement que ça a été la loi municipale de l'Ontario spécifie que les gens ils ont le droit d'observer, mais il n'y a pas rien qui dit qu'ils ont un droit de parler. Puis ça a été confirmé par la loi Supreme Court of Canada.
OK. Même au niveau de l'information?
De l'information?
On récupère votre information. On a droit à une information, un échange d'informations. Oui,
définitivement. Ben, je veux dire, je parle spécifiquement à la période de questions. Oui. La municipalité de Russell est une des... Il n'y en a pas gros, là. Dans 444 municipalités Ontario, là, la grosse majorité, ils n'ont pas une période de questions. Il en reste pas beaucoup qui ont des périodes de questions.
Il en reste plus beaucoup?
Non, presque pas, honnêtement.
Ah, OK. À
So,
vérifier.
À vérifier.
À vérifier, parfait. Ma dernière question.
Oui.
C'est, est-ce que la municipalité ici est toujours membre de...
So, c'est-tu sur l'ordre du jour?
C'est une question.
C'est une question sur l'ordre du jour. Il faut que ça soit des sujets sur l'agenda.
C'était au niveau si la municipalité est toujours membre de l'Association des municipalités francophones de l'Ontario.
Oui. So, je suis prêt à te parler là-dessus, définitivement. Je crois que oui, mais ce n'est pas sur l'ordre du jour.
Non.
Mais elle m'a confirmé avec l'administration, puis il m'a revenir là-dessus.
OK. Parce que je voulais juste vous dire que c'est un fondateur, fier fondateur d'un ancien maire ici,
Oui.
Gaston Parnaud, qui est fondateur. Ça serait le fun d'y avoir un respect aussi, qu'on ait des conversations en franco.
Oui.
Merci.
Merci.
Hi, Candace Vetter with CJRO Radio. I just have one
Address?
question. And my question is, can council refuse delegations?
Can council refuse delegations? I believe there is the ability to refuse delegations in certain cases when it's I'm trying to remember the exact wording. Yeah, it's in our procedure bylaw. I'll have to double check. But yes, council does not have the ability. The agenda is between the administration, the CEO, the clerk, and the mayor. It takes 2 out of 3 to put something on the agenda. So that way, I implemented that specifically so that if the administration wanted to put something on the table, you couldn't have a mayor that prevented something from being on the table. So that's why it takes 2 out of 3 members to have something put on the agenda. That's correct, Madame Cameron-Laflamme?
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, I can add that in the procedural bylaw, at the end of the application form, it might not be on the one on the website because it might not have all the information, but it says a delegation previously heard by Planning Advisory Committee will also be refused, and an application may also be refused. Various types, as if we have 3 or 4 delegations that want to come the same night. So if we have too many and the agenda is deemed too full or something like that, it could be.
Yeah,
it could be.
And I think it says in there as well that the majority of council can ask to have if a delegation was refused, the majority of council can ask that it be included in the agenda. So.
And just to follow up on Vanessa's statement, does the so if the agenda's too full, can it be just added to a different, like a following?
Yeah, we do that often when we have 2 or 3 delegations. We ask the members if they're able to do it at a subsequent meeting, and usually that everybody is able to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, I just wanted to make clear, because the question was, can council refuse a delegation? And I just want to make it clear that it's not council that decides whether or not a delegation. C'est juste, pour la question était, pour les délégations, si le conseil peut le refuser, et la réponse est non, c'est le chef d'administration, la greffière et le maire qui fait la décision, et c'est deux de 3 qui peuvent le mettre sur l'agenda.
Oui.
Merci.
OK. Councillor Tarnowski?
Monsieur le maire, ce serait pour faire un commentaire pour Monsieur Godin. Ici ce soir, parce qu'on suit notre procedural bylaw sur les questions, la structure de cette période de questions, j'ai trouvé qu'on a eu un petit peu de misère où il y a eu des commentaires, où il y a eu des idées ou des questions qui ne faisaient peut-être pas affaire sur l'agenda. Mais je pense que ça souligne le fait que je pense qu'il y a une opportunité ici vraiment quand on regarde sur la politique qui va nous venir, sur l'engagement. Ça nous donne opinion, en tout cas ça me donne une opinion, c'est qu'on devrait vraiment regarder l'opportunité d'avoir des genres de open house où ce qu'on peut avoir des résidents qui peuvent venir discuter avec nous, pas juste où ce que c'est questions-réponses, mais où ce qu'on peut avoir un dialogue. Je pense que pas nécessairement à toutes nos réunions, mais puis ça serait peut-être dans un cadre de réunion spéciale, mais je trouve que il y a vraiment des bons commentaires, questions qui ont été posées ici, puis je trouve ça le fun de regarder ça. Alors j'espère que quand la politique va nous revenir ou quand on aura la chance d'engager sur cette politique, qu'on va vraiment considérer quelque chose comme ça. Merci.
OK. Parfait, M. Godin. Quelque chose à ajouter?
Oui, merci, M. le maire. Donc, oui, définitivement, c'est mon attente pour une telle politique. La politique comme telle n'est pas visée à regarder la section des périodes de questions d'une rencontre de conseil. C'est vraiment pour comment on peut engager le public de façon plus efficiente puis le plus inclusive possible et accessible. Donc, oui, votre commentaire est bien pris, puis on va regarder ça.
Thank you. Question, sir.
Doug Esterbook. Same cough. A few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, there were a couple of motions passed at this council.
Okay, so question on the agenda of the day.
Question is going, it has to lead up to this. And my question really is it has to do with preserving public confidence in your decisions. A few weeks ago, a question was asked of you. I witnessed that. And the question was related to the motion to limit the number of people who could get together in this township without a permit over 25 people. Charles Armstrong stood up and asked the question, and I'm going to ask the
Okay,
question
so
again.
this
Okay.
This is not on the agenda of the
It
day.
has to do with decisions, okay?
Okay, so it's not on the agenda of the day, sir?
I'm going to ask you. your
So
answer-
I'll ask for, what is
here's
your
the question.
question on the agenda of the day?
Your answer was to him was.
Okay, sir, this
sue us,
has
okay?
become a debate,
To
so
preserve-
I'll ask you to sit down,
Question,
sir.
To preserve
Sir?
public confidence, would you ensure us
Sir,
that
if you
decisions
can't,
are made
if you can't sit down,
through the
sir,
lens of integrity, honesty,
okay,
professionalism, and compassion?
we're going on recess
going forward?
if this is going to continue. So, sir, I'll ask you to sit down, please. Questions on the agenda of the day, please. No? We'll move on. We've already allocated more than 30 minutes. So prochain item. So item 15, resolutions. Like to take 2 minutes break? Yeah, okay, so let's, it's 7:12, let's come back at 7:20. We'll get started. Honestly, I think that's maybe the second time in 10 years that I've hit that gavel. All right, on est à section 15, résolution. Item 15, resolution, motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. I need a mover and a seconder to put on the floor, please. Moved by Councillor Ternosky, moved by Conseiller Larin. I believe we have a few amendments here, so we have to remove item 11B. I think that was to vote on it separately. And then we have to, we will be adding the two items, item 18A will be added to the resolution, and then we'll do B separately because there was a motion to defer. So, it's not the bylaws, the two motions that I brought.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
11B, there's no motion. So-
Oh, it's in the bylaw section.
And it's by itself, so it
So we're
doesn't have to
good.
be
So
separated.
don't need to remove it, item. Okay, so motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees, and that we also include item 18A for consideration. Okay, so I need a, we have a mover and a seconder. I need a mover and a seconder for the amendment. So moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Conseiller Larin. All,
And that's just adding 18A to that.
yes. So the adding the motion for the free access to the sports dome. So all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. So now at this point, we'll do item 18B, we'll put on the floor, which was the expanding rural transportation options. So I need a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Larin. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Deacon.
I would like to defer this one to next meeting, if I may.
Okay. So
I propose deferring.
yeah, so we have a proposal to defer. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ternosky. Questions, comments on the deferral? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. 18B. Oh,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Deacon, is there a date, did you say, to defer, or?
the next meeting.
To the next meeting? Okay, thank you.
So all those in favor of the deferral? Yes? Okay. So that's deferred. Okay, that's fine. Item size, règlement, item 16, bylaws. Motion that council approve bylaw 2024-015 for a first, second, third reading as listed on the agenda, which was 2024 being a bylaw to amend procedural bylaw 2021-127 with respect to the question period. Need a mover and seconder to put on the floor, please. So moved by Councillor Ternosky, seconded by Councillor Deacon. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Ternosky.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Alors, comme j'ai indiqué dans ma présentation, I would like to defer this item until the policy on engagement comes back to us after a thorough review and discussion, which would include items around that. So I would propose that we defer until that time.
Okay, so the deferral would be that this be brought back after a community engagement policy is approved by council. Is that fair to say? Councillor Tarnowski?
Just pour clarifier, Monsieur le Maire, the intent here is really to ensure that we address the issue where the process, as we saw tonight, is conducted in a proper fashion, and that we have the proper format that ensures that throughout. So whether that comes with that policy or whether that comes as part of that policy or onto the side of that policy, I'm happy to keep the question period as it is until we have a chance to look at other options around that policy. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a proposal pour le différer, to defer it. Do we have a seconder to defer it? Councillor Lorrain. Questions, comments on the deferral? Councillor Lalonde?
Yeah, I think with what has been learned over the last few days and the comments that we've all made here, I might be prepared to support the motion to defer, but I want to reiterate what was said earlier in my own notes about wanting to make sure that maybe question period as it is now, that our mayor, the chair, exercise proper authority, the authority that you have to make sure that, or maybe to reinforce the idea that comments, criticisms, we had another example, that these things are not allowed to take place during council meetings. And I would want to insist, again, maybe through your own exercising of authority, that those questions that are sort of operational in nature or administrative, be it contract management or clausing in contracts and how service contracts are, that sort of thing, that administration staff be given sufficient time, even if it means coming back to council and not trying to make that attempt at each meeting to try and get that information out on the spot, as we were both referring to, Councillor Tarnowski and myself. If those things could be tightened up, and if we could make sure that administration feel comfortable that they're not obliged to provide partial information or some sort of an answer on the spot, that they would be given the proper time to do that, then I would support the motion to defer.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Lalonde. Point taken. I will endeavor to improve my question period skills, if you will. One thing I will add to the conversation, I know that it has become common practice, I'll say, in the last year by some people, that they will send a question on the agenda of the day to administration ahead of time, to several different people trying to get answers, and then they come up to the table and ask the question after the administration has provided answers. So I think that once from the administration point, if ever you feel that a question has been asked and answered, I don't believe that we should be moving forward with that. There's other ways. If people aren't happy with the answer of the administration, they can contact the members of council, discuss the item, or again, delegation on a subject matter of importance, then we'll go that route. But I appreciate your feedback, Conseiller Lalonde. Councillor Deakin.
I'm okay to refer back to this when we have a better sense of the whole picture in terms of public engagement. And my sense is that this isn't going to be the only thing on the procedural bylaw that we're looking at. And I do recognize and acknowledge that council, this is our bread and butter of what we do, is, the procedural bylaw and how we choose as a group to conduct our meetings and engage the public through that. So I do assume that we'll be quite involved in that aspect of the work, if that is part of the public engagement policy. And so I'm willing to defer it until such time. Again, I'm seeing a few different ways that the procedural bylaw could be enhanced on that public engagement question. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Madame Camille Laflamme, procedural question. With the procedure bylaw being open at the request at the last meeting, does that mean it remains open until such time as it comes back, even though the item has been deferred? And I ask that question only because I'm going to assume that council is going to receive some requests from the members of the public, ideas, thoughts on how the procedure bylaw is administered today. We have a copy of it. I believe it's on the website.
That's correct.
So you can go and look at it. And if there's something in there you don't understand or you want clarification on, again, you have our emails, you have my numbers up on the website. I think all of our numbers are up on the website. Feel free to reach out, have a discussion. And that way there, when it does come back for either we don't decide on it or we do vote on it, we can have those additional thoughts added to it in the table, like we've always done. This item changed from here to that. And that way there, you have the ability to make those requests of council on the procedure bylaw. So although only the one piece of it was discussed to make a change, we can now, because it is open, we can then add additional items to it down the road.
So,
because it's still open.
Well, in the sense that currently how the procedural bylaw works is, and it's not necessarily the way we've done it in the past, and, you know, two wrongs don't make a right, so moving forward, we'll make sure we do it right. But for this item, it would come back. Any further changes would be considered the notice at that point in time. So if ever this came back with a bunch of different changes, we can add those, but those would be discussed at that point in time, and
Right.
that would be considered the notice for the next time.
It gives us that opportunity to put it on.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So that could be put on the table of potential changes, definitely. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. We have it on the table. We have a mover and a second for the deferral. If there's no further questions, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. The item has been deferred to a future meeting. Prochain item, item 17, rapport d'affaires nouveau. Il n'y a pas. Councillor Ternosky?
I just get, just request, and perhaps it's requesting to suspend rules of procedure, but again, pour peut-être donner une chance au public à savoir qu'est-ce qui vient de se passer, pour qu'ils comprennent, est-ce qu'on pourrait juste expliquer?
Oui, je peux clarifier. So essentially what's just happened, qu'est-ce qui vient juste d'arriver, c'est que Council has deferred this decision to a future point in time. So until we get a report and a policy from our administration on how to increase community engagement, once we have that policy or a council addresses that issue, then at that point in time, we could revisit this question and decide on how we want to proceed, whether it's a vote down, whether it's a change, whether it's amendment. But that'll only come later on and at a future meeting. And obviously, this is a big file, so I don't anticipate this being next meeting in 2 weeks. No. Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. No, that's correct. So it won't be in a couple of weeks. So as we mentioned in the report, we just, the team followed some trainings, some webinars over the last few months and have a meeting scheduled in the coming weeks to kick this off. So we're really at the opening stages of this project. And we anticipate to come back to council at the beginning as well with our proposed scope to see and make sure we are addressing council's needs and what they were looking for when they put this in their strat plan. So by the time we have an adopted policy, it's definitely a couple of months for sure.
Oh, minimum. Okay. Councillor Tarnowski?
Et encore une fois, juste pour clarifier, Monsieur Godin, mais que ça nous revienne avec une politique après avoir eu des discussions, quoi que ce soit ce soir-là, que ça va nous revenir. c'est pas là qu'on va nécessairement faire une décision, right? Fait que même les gens du public qui sont intéressés à suivre, follow this file, ils peuvent le faire en regardant nos préparations d'agenda à chaque 2 semaines, puis ils vont revoir ça arriver éventuellement, puis ils vont avoir du temps, s'ils ont des questions là-dessus, quoi que ce soit, qu'ils peuvent venir nous voir puis nous en parler. C'est ça?
Monsieur Godin?
Oui, c'est ça, c'est notre plan.
Parfait. All right. With that, bylaws has been passed. New business reports, there's none. 18 was completed. Item 19, consultation publique, hearings, there is none. Item 20, annonce. Members du Conseil, members of council, any announcements today? Councillor Deacon?
I'd like to make 2 announcements. The first one is that International Women's Day will be celebrated before the next council meeting on March 8th. March 8th is International Women's Day. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all the women who are in service and leadership roles in our community, including the handful of women who have served at the council. I believe one of them was here earlier tonight. I'm not sure if she still is. Just to say that we've come a long way, and for many of us, I don't think our grandmothers could have imagined the sort of ways that we're contributing to our community. So let's celebrate. The Russell Agricultural Society, I believe on March 8th, will be announcing the launch of ticket sales for Ladies' Night in May. So like I said, let's celebrate our accomplishments and continue pushing for better. The other one that I wanted to mention as well before the next council meeting, those who are Muslim in our community will be observing Ramadan. So I want to wish Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak to those who will be observing next month.
Thank you very much. Other announcements, members of council? Hearing, seeing none. Prochain item, discussion stratégique. Il n'y a rien sur l'agenda ce soir. Item 22, closed session. Motion to move into closed session at the hour of 7:34 p.m. to address matters pertaining to 1, update on potential lease regarding a property in Emblem, verbal report under Section 2K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality or local board. And item 2, closed session minutes of the regular council meeting dated February 12th, 2024. So we're, Councillor Lalonde? No. So we are now going into closed session. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here this evening. Madame Mover and Second.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. I thought it might be useful for the public that's here tonight to explain a little bit about what closed session is about,
sure.
what its purpose is.
So, oui, je suis fier de faire ça. Une session à huis clos, a closed session meeting, is where the public is not able to be in a closed session meeting. There's strict rules as per the Ontario Municipal Act as to what we can speak about in closed session open. The example I like to give out to residents is if you were selling your property, would you want to know how much you're willing to, would you want the buyer to know how much you're willing to sell it for, right? We have to protect aspects of the community. We have to do this in the best interests. Other cases when it's, there's a whole list. Lawyer-client privileges. What else is there off the top of my head? Acquisition of land, sale of land, identifiable individual, HR matters, all that kind of stuff. So it's not that council wants to hide things, but obviously there are subjects that we can't speak about in a public setting. And I think everybody would understand that. Given the example I just give, you're trying to sell your house. You know, you're looking for $450, but you're willing to take $400. Do you want the guy buying it to know that you're willing to take $400? Obviously not. So that's why we go into closed sessions for these type of, and again, it's very regulated as per the province. So ça, c'est une session à huis clos. On va à huis clos parce qu'il y a des sujets que, d'après la province d'Ontario, on a le droit de le faire, spécifiquement avec l'intérêt de protéger la corporation de la municipalité ou du canton. So c'est pas mal ça. So avec ça, merci beaucoup. Once we come out of closed session, just so you're aware, we come out of closed session, we report what we came at. You know, it might be something as we gave a direction to the administration to proceed. If it's a sale of property, we confirm the sale of the property, you know. So some items, when a decision needs to be made, then it's brought back and council has, has to vote on something, but sometimes it's as simple as juste donner une direction. So, c'est pas mal ça. So, thank you very much, everyone. You're more than welcome to wait outside on the other side of the double doors until we come out. It could be 5 minutes, like it could be an hour. There's never a way to know until we're done our closed session. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde.
Mr. Mayor, we need to vote the mover seconder to go in closed session.
Moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Tonoski. Tous en favor? All opposed? We're good. Thank you very much.